Now, the long weekend wraps up with a burst of intense heat today, with heatwave warnings in place across multiple states and fire authorities on high alert. Total fire bans are in place across much of Victoria and parts of South Australia today.
Melbourne is tipped to be the hottest of the capital cities with a top of 41 degrees. We'll get the national outlook from Nate in just a minute, but first, let's go to Stephanie Ferrier in a very hot Melbourne. Steph, looks shaping up to be a hot day for so many Australians. Tell us, what does the outlook say today?
Good morning, Bridget. Yes, I've managed to prop myself here at Parliament Gardens in Melbourne, close to this beautiful waterfall behind me. The seagulls are already having a little bit of a bath, and often we see kids and people frolicking around in these hot days. So definitely a lot of people will probably be taking advantage of a cold shower here. But it's not just the mercury that's soaring to 41 degrees here in Melbourne. We're also seeing really hot temperatures, for example, for Adelaide and also Canberra. They're going to get up to 35 degrees as well. And that's all due to the fact that we've got this heat wave that is stretching right across many parts of the country. From the west over in WA, we've got Gascoyne Junction up to 47 degrees today. Can you imagine that? All the way across the top end, down into Queensland and also New South Wales, parts of Victoria and South Australia, as you said, total fire bans. Earlier on, we spoke with David Harris, who is the CFA State Agency Commander, and he says that there have been several fires overnight, grass fires that have been put out by authorities, including one that was in Melbourne's west in Altona that came within metres of homes. That's a suspicious fire there, but he says the danger is very real for some of these high fire danger areas in the Mallee, Wimmera, also southwest, north central and central parts of Victoria. That includes Melbourne, and this is what he had to say about the conditions we're going to face.
The problem for us today may be that we've got some thunderstorms developing earlier through the morning before the actual cool change comes through, which may be dry thunderstorms. So we could have lightning strikes causing other fires out through the west of the state. So we have all our resources on high alert and available to respond to any new outbreaks.
And that is David Harris from the CFA. Now, he says that as a result of that total fire ban, obviously no fires to be lit. Also for people out in rural areas to limit work on their paddocks, as well as if you're in camping areas, to make sure you really douse those campfires properly with around 10 litres of water and make sure that it's fully extinguished. We do not want to see any sorts of fires inadvertently start up as a result of campsites. Now, over in South Australia, there are also fire bans in force as well for the Mid-North, Riverland and Murraylands, also the Mount Lofty Ranges, upper and lower southeast as well. And we're seeing some of those temperatures get up to 44 degrees, for example, in Coobapedy and Oodnadatta. So really hot across many parts of the country. The advice, of course, is to make sure that you stay cool and check on those elderly neighbours if you have any, to make sure that they're okay.
Steph, thanks very much.
Let's head overseas, because Jordan and Egypt have been quick to reject Donald Trump's suggestion to displace as many as 1.5 million people from Gaza, as the US president is accused of advocating for ethnic cleansing. Our Global Affairs Editor John Lyons is in Jerusalem for us this morning.
There's a backlash in parts of the Arab world against three of Donald Trump's decisions and indications. The first is the lifting of US sanctions against some of the most violent Jewish settlers in the West Bank. The Biden administration was concerned about growing settler violence. And for Palestinians, lifting of those sanctions is seen as giving a green light to some of the most violent elements of the settlers. Secondly, the lifting of US restrictions on the supply of 2,000-pound bombs. The Biden administration brought in those restrictions due to concern about the impact of 2,000-pound bombs on such a densely populated area. When asked why the US was lifting those restrictions, Donald Trump said, because Israel has paid for these bombs. And thirdly, Donald Trump has flagged the notion of Jordan and Egypt taking as many as 1.5 million people from Gaza. That has delighted elements of the far right here in Israel, who have seen Gaza as an area that they could re-establish settlements. But for Palestinians, it brings up the shadow of ethnic cleansing.
That is John Lyons reporting for us there. We've got more news now with Emma.
Thank you, Bridget. A woman charged over the death of a 9-year-old boy in North Queensland is due to face court today. Police say emergency services were called to an address in Townsville on Saturday night, where they discovered a 9-year-old boy dead. A 24-year-old woman was arrested at the property. Police say she was known to the boy and has been charged with 1 count of murder. US President Donald Trump has ordered emergency tariffs and a series of sanctions on Colombia after the South American nation turned back deportation flights. Colombian President Gustavo Petro says his government will not accept flights carrying deported migrants until the Trump administration creates a protocol that treats them with dignity. On social media, President Trump said he's told his administration to issue 25% tariffs on all goods coming into the US from Colombia and to raise this to 50% in 1 week. South Korea's impeached president has been charged with insurrection. Insurrection can be punishable by life imprisonment or death, although South Korea has not conducted an execution in decades. Yoon Suk-yeol has argued his short-lived martial law declaration in early December was due to the opposition-controlled parliament paralysing government. The country's top court has 180 days to determine whether to remove Mr Yoon from office or reinstate his presidential powers. Authorities in Congo have reportedly blocked access to the airport and cancelled flights in the eastern city of Goma as M23 rebels advance on the city. The rebel group has seized vast areas of eastern Congo in recent years, but in the past 3 weeks they've advanced swiftly on Goma, which is a regional hub for security and humanitarian efforts. At least 13 foreign soldiers serving with peacekeeping forces have been killed. Congo, the United States and UN experts accuse Rwanda of backing M23, which Rwanda denies. Blood banks are helping to ease shortages of IV fluids at veterinary clinics. Vets are suffering from a global shortage of IV fluids that has affected hospitals and medical centres. If an IV bag is partially used or expired, it's no longer deemed safe for humans, but it can still be safely repurposed for animals. A Newcastle vet who asked the blood bank for the unused fluids is now helping to supply saline to veterinary clinics right across the country.